Welcome to Daily Dose Radio, a 5-minute devotional podcast studying the Psalms verse by verse. Broadcast from the ever-beautiful Sharonville, Ohio, on the sunny side of Cincinnati. Hey there, friends. Welcome back to Daily Dose Radio. Today we're going to be looking at verses 34 through 37 in Psalm 89. Psalm 89, boy, hasn't this just been a treat. This psalm is just a treat. And we're not done with it yet, because next week we're going to be looking at verses 38 through the end of the psalm. And this psalm is the last psalm in this particular book of the psalm. I think this is the second book of the Psalms. So this is the end of book 2. We're drawing in on the end of book 2, and we'll pick up the beginning of book 3. Book 3 is exciting, and so is book 4. We'll look forward to those as well. But today we're going to finish it off with an examination of verses 34 through 37. Let me read those verses for you. My covenant will I not break, nor alter the thing that is gone out of my lips. Once I have sworn by my holiness that I will not lie unto David. His seed shall endure forever, and his throne is the sun before me. It shall be established forever as the moon, and as a faithful witness in heaven. Selah. Verse 34 is one of those verses that when you read it, there just has to be a hard stop, and you have to consider it. So let's look at verse 34. My covenant will I not break, nor alter the thing that has gone out of my lips. There are lots of businesses in the world who make promises about the products that they produce, right? Lots of them. As a matter of fact, it wasn't that long ago, but a couple years back, probably now, I had a tool in my tool chest, and I was working on my car one day, and this was a Craftsman tool. I was working on the car, and it broke. And I looked at that thing, and I said, well, what am I going to do? And then I remembered the promise that stands behind Craftsman tools, right? They tell you if it breaks, bring it back and we'll replace it. Well, now this particular tool happened to belong to my grandfather. I mean, I'm a pretty old fella now, and when it broke, that tool was at least 70 years old, had to be. I know it was in my grandfather's toolbox, it was in my father's toolbox, and it was in my toolbox, and then it broke. And so I thought, you know what, I'm just going to test this guarantee out. And so I got that tool, got in the car, drove over to my local Sears store, walked into the tool section, a man standing behind the counter, and I pulled that tool out of my pocket, showed him the whole thing, the broke part, the good part, all of it. I said, this broke. I said, this is an old one. I said, really old. I said, I don't even know if you carry these anymore. And he said, not a problem. And he looked at the handle. Of course, it said Craftsman all over the handle. He looked at the handle. He said, walk down that aisle right there. He said, you'll find one of those at the end of the aisle. Pick it up, bring it to me. I went down there. There was one exactly like it. Took it to him. Well, not exactly like it, but it was close enough. Took it to him. He said, there you go. He said, just, enjoy it. And so I walked out of the store, didn't pay a thing, didn't do anything. He kept the old part. That kind of guarantee is something that we experience in this life. Well, the Lord gives us that kind of guarantee in His Word. He says, my covenant will I not break, nor alter the thing that has gone out of my lips. If we can trust Sears and Roebuck to keep their word, why can't we trust God to keep His? His word is not failing ever. Sears and Roebuck one day will be a distant memory if anybody remembers them at all in the future. But God's word will always be around, and His promise that He's always going to be faithful to His word and not fail it is always going to be there. We can trust His word. He says there in verse 35, once I have sworn by my holiness, that will I not lie unto David. So God backs up His word with this guarantee. In holiness He's promised. And then He says in verse 36, His seed, so we go back to Messiah again. His seed shall endure forever, His throne as the sun before me. So He said this is going to happen. He repeats it here, and we're reminded of verse 4. We go back up to verse 4 in this particular psalm, and we find this again. The throne lasting as the sun, it shall be established forever as the moon, as a faithful witness in heaven. So that is exactly how faithful this word is. You can look at the moon and you can see the sun. Ladies and gentlemen, you can know that God will not break his covenant. Seed will endure forever. Messiah will reign. I hope you'll join me again next week as we look at the final section in Psalm 89 on Daily Dose Radio. Thanks for listening to Daily Dose Radio. I'm David Smith. The music today has been performed by the Bluegrass Experiment. Thanks again for listening. I'll see you next time on Daily Dose Radio.